Hello and welcome to the University of Ontario Institute of Technology presents the Walrus Talks Humanity and Technology. I'm Shelley Ambrose. I'm the Executive Director and Publisher of the Walrus, and we are thrilled to be here with you at the Mars Discovery District. This auditorium sits on the territory of the Huron-Wendat and Petun First Nations, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the New Credit. Toronto has long been a meeting place of Indigenous people, and we're honored to continue a long tradition of conversation on this very spot. This optimistic project called the Walrus started 15 years ago, and our goal is to create forums for conversations about Canada and its place in the world. Canada's conversation, I don't need to tell you, is complex and necessary, and at the Walrus it takes many forms. Fact-based journalism, actual live human fact-checking people, fact-based journalism in the Walrus magazine and at thewalrus.ca, in the Walrus books, the Walrus podcasts, and in rooms like this at the Walrus Talks. So no matter where the Walrus is or how it is consumed, we embrace our commitment to be independent and fact-based and to bring together interesting and interested people who care about the issues that matter. So some of you know this game I play. Hands up if you read the Walrus. That is awesome. Hands up if you support fact-based journalism financially by subscribing or donating. You are my people. Thank you, people. So tonight is our 97th Walrus Talks. Hands up if you've been to a Walrus Talks before. Welcome back. Hands up if you're new. Wow, that's fantastic. Let's welcome the new people. Newbies, we love you. So we're thrilled to be working for the first time with the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, which is in Oshawa. As one of Canada's leading technological universities, their experts deliver an educational experience that is tech-savvy with a conscience, preparing students to be critical thinkers, problem solvers, leaders, engaged citizens, and community builders and walrus readers of tomorrow. And to tell us just a little bit more about that, please welcome President and Vice Chancellor, Dr. Stephen Murphy. I'm going to hug this, but I had to ask permission. Thank you.
Good evening. How are we? That's good. Let's get this crowd rocking. What a pleasure it is to be here with you tonight and to participate in the program with our faculty and a few of our students. Thanks for that introduction, Shelley. So as one of Canada's top tech universities, the University of Ontario Institute of Technology is a higher education reimagined. We're inspired by the possibility of technology and innovation and the role that it plays in humanity. We're driven to teach each and every student through the lens of technology and have them understand its impact. And what is really important is we are tech with a conscience. I thought I would walk us a little bit down memory lane today. As I was preparing for this, I was just thinking about how technology has progressed. I usually say Tech 1.0 was when the ubiquity of technology first came out. Little audience participation. When did the World Wide Web get developed? 1990. So from 90 until about 2000, we were all trying to get on the web. Then from about 2000 to 2010, maybe a little longer, the 2.0 era hit, and we all wanted the latest gadget in our pocket. And the 3.0 era is really about ensuring that we have tech with a social conscience. So it's embedded with privacy, security. We start asking questions of, is this really good for our society? Is this driving productive, positive conversations? And to us, that's just such a critical conversation, and we're glad to be fostering that tonight. One of our students, Hamoon Chowdhury, Hamoon, you in the room? Big shout out. Hamoon was, in addition to having his summer internship at Tesla, which is fantastic, do you know what our students do in their spare time? He developed a prosthetic arm at a price point that would be lower so that people in the developed world could afford it, lower than $1,000, has a small camera that recognizes objects and calibrates it for the best grip. That is what is happening on today's campuses. So I encourage you to visit our students and experts this evening and find out more about our university. We're Tech with a Conscience. We're 50 kilometers east of where we're sitting tonight. So if you don't know about us, please do. The Toronto Waterloo region is a very important corridor, a big cluster in tech, and we consider ourselves the eastern anchor of that cluster. And so, as I said, come and check us out. We're on an incredible trajectory. So introduce us to yourselves, to your friends, to your neighbors, because there is not a university in Canada that is moving as rapidly. We're well positioned for disrupting the norm. If you want to use our hashtag handle OnTechU, please do. It underscores our strength as a tech-focused university with a social conscience. And let me just thank Walrus for providing this forum for conversations. We're so pleased that 3 of our experts, Andrea, Isabel, and Khalid, are here to share their research with you. Enjoy.
Thank you, Stephen. I also want to welcome the Chancellor of the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, Noreen Taylor, who is here somewhere. Where is she? Noreen? I can't see her, but she's somewhere here. Okay. You got a present on your chair from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, your little gift, and we realized it's like extraordinary packaging. They come in 3 colors. White, pink, black, and white, so at the reception you can, swap if you don't like your color. How many people, be honest, have no idea what this is? Look at that, okay. The people who do know, shh. It's a webcam privacy cover. Aha. How many people don't know what a webcam is? Keep your hands down. Do not do that here. That would be bad. Webcam privacy cover, little gift for you tonight. We're all very intrigued by the topic this evening, the connection between humanity and technology. What are the challenges and opportunities of technology? How is AI, wearable tech, constant connectivity changing our lives for better or worse? And how can education keep up with the technological advances? How do we ensure that everyone in society is helped and not harmed? Our speakers tonight will give us much more to think about those topics and lots of other things I'm sure I haven't thought of. So here is how the Walrus Talks works. Each talker has 7 minutes. They know this. There are 7 of them for 7 minutes each. Each will come up and introduce themselves. So you have a program, the lights will stay up, you follow along. The front of your program is in speaker order. If you would like to know more about them, flip it over and you can read their bios. You will hear 7 talkers in a row, and once your head is full of new ideas, we'll have lots to talk about at the post-talks reception, to which you are all invited. So just before I let them get underway, I'd like to thank each in advance. So thank you to Audacious Futures founder and CEO, Hamoon Ekhtiari, Canada Research Chair in Digital Life, Media and Culture, University of Ontario Institute of Technology's Isabel Pedersen. Thank you to founder and CEO, Dot Health, Huda Idrees. Thank you to Canada Research Chair in the Internet of Things, University of Ontario Institute of Technology's Khalid Elgazzar. Thank you to Associate Professor, Legal Studies from the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, Andrea Slane. Thank you to co-founder and co-CEO, Prodigy Game, Alex Peters. Thank you to Managing Director, OneEleven Toronto, and a member of the National Advisory Council of the Walrus, Siri Agrell. Thank you all for coming. Let us begin.
Artificial intelligence, blockchain, virtual reality, Internet of Things, quantum computing, technologies disrupting the world, and unless I use your fear of missing out to bombard you with all of these buzzwords, the 2 people sitting beside you, 50% of them will not survive 2018. That's the message we get, right? That's the message we get individually. That's the message that permeates through our organizations. And that's the message that our societies and governments are confronting. And yet, and look, there's value to that. I'm Hamoon, and I run an organization called Audacious Futures. And so by the name of that, we should be riding this train and laughing our way to the bank. But I'm here tonight to tell you, I don't believe that's our path to the future. I don't believe that if we continue down this path, we'll get to where we need to go. And because if we continue by being enamored by the silver bullets and jumping on the bandwagons left, right, and center, we'll end up in as unfortunate of a place as the decision I made to make these words that wide. And so if you think about that, then you wonder, what does that mean? Where is it that we're going to go? So what I'd like to do tonight is talk to you about cars, organs, and philosophy. I was reading a story about this innovative new car and a woman who unfortunately had a really bad accident. And a lot of people were worked up about this. It was a new car that had come out. Some of you might have heard about this. It was this, right? It was the Uber in Arizona, a self-driving car. It just happened earlier this year. Well, not quite. This was actually 1896. It was the first recorded incident of someone being killed in a car accident. We have this weird relationship with technology where we keep going through the same cycle. We get excited about the latest new thing, then at some point we get afraid of it and have a knee-jerk reaction. Eventually we come around to it and say, oh, it's going to be okay, and we adapt and move on. And then we go on finding the next new shiny object to follow. And that cycle continues. You don't believe me? That's okay. The consultants, it's so regularly happening that the consultants made a graph about it, called it the hype cycle of technology, and make money off of telling us where on the curve we are every other year. And so how do we get out of this vicious cycle? How do we get out? I don't have all the answers, but I think where we might need to start is a mindset shift. And that mindset shift is from technology as gospel to technology as a value-neutral tool whose value will be determined by our values. And that shift is about a shift from this human versus machine debates that we keep going through to a fundamentally different conversation around human plus machine. And I think for us to be able to bring that potential to life, we need to activate 3 key superpowers that come to life from the human and machine equation. The first one is collective imagination. We talked about self-driving cars, and you might know that experts are saying they're so safe that we're actually going to have to find new organ donors. Why? Because car accidents are the primary source of organ donations. Now, organ donations are not the only place where we need reimagining. If you think of cities, self-driving cars, a city like LA, 10 to 15% made up of only parking spaces. And so with self-driving cars being there, we don't need that space, and so we have a chance to reimagine the city from the ground up. And it's not just the cities that require imagination. There's an entire global footprint of opportunities for us to pursue. The second superpower is around collective intelligence. They say 2 minds are better than one. I'm going to actually argue with that. I'm going to give you something better. I'm going to give you all of our collective minds plus all the machine power. How about that? And the way we're going to have to be able to have access to all of that power on the cloud, supported by increasingly limitless computing power. And so for us, what that enables is we talked about the organ donation issue. We've already started actually solving for this. With crowdsourcing and AI, we're able to find live matched donors much more effectively than we were previously able to. Now, this is actually an intelligence and superpower that we use quite regularly. So the real question here is whether we're going to use that power for the problems that matter most to us. And at the risk of offending all the dog lovers in this room, rather than using all that intelligence to build Fitbits for dogs and $400 juicers startups that go bust after a couple of years. That brings us to our third superpower. And the third superpower is around our collective consciousness. Religion and history have shown us over thousands of years that while we're attracted to the new and the shiny, what really stands the test of time is the timeless. Our ethics, our morals, our values. And yes, it is great that we're increasingly talking about the importance of ethics in AI, but I think we forget, we treat it as if it's out there, and we forget that it's actually part of who we are. It is our ethics that are showing up in our technologies. So we talk about AI and bias, and we forget that it comes from us. We get excited about blockchain becoming the next currency overnight, and we never take the time to address the complicated relationship we have with money. We get really pumped up about virtual reality technology and what it's going to do, and we forget that all of us are already living in our own virtual realities. And so I guess the point I'm getting at is, if we live in an age where technology is transforming humanity, and if humanity is starting to raise technology as a parent might a child, and if humanity and technology are coming together increasingly as an integrated unit, what will be our saving grace? I believe our saving grace will be putting these superpowers to the problems that matter most, but that will require us to have a level of curiosity more than we normally do, to have a level of compassion beyond what we would just expect of our close circles, and to have a level of courage to face our darker shadows. And so perhaps with elevated wisdom, with collective intelligence, as well as a better ability to understand how we bring technology and humanity together, perhaps finally, once and for all, we will be able to define and decide on the values we need in our technologies to design and create the audacious futures we desire. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. I'm Isabel Pedersen, Associate Professor and Canada Research Chair of Digital Life, Media and Culture at UOIT, and I'm very proud to be here today. Tonight, I want to talk about one disruptive dream for technology. And it's a dream about technology and humans, and it's a dream about, really, artificial intelligence, but it goes one step further than a trusty AI assistant, your Alexa or your Siri. It's a dream about us collaborating with AI in a relationship that might be the most personal relationship you could ever have with a computer, or maybe even another person. The dream is to implant artificial intelligence in our brains. And while disruptive for the general public, for us, it's now the occupation of inventors, of neuroscientists, corporations, and militaries that believe brain-computer interaction is an ethical and viable option for citizens like us around the world. I'm using the word viable today deliberately. Viable means capable and feasible and practical, but it also comes from the Latin root to live. AI is advancing on us because we seek its viability, to incorporate it in our brains, to make it corporeal in us rather than in a self-driving car or a smartphone app or even a weapon, is a significant cultural turn, and I think one that deserves our public scrutiny. Now is the time to question whether this turn in computing will be to our benefit. I like this 1981 definition of AI from an interview with Marvin Minsky from The New Yorker. Artificial intelligence is the ability of certain machines to do things that people are inclined to call intelligent. And the author here skirts the question over whether an AI is or is not an intelligent being, as long as we assume its agency. Today, Gartner Group has predicted that by 2021, artificial intelligence will back 80% of emerging technologies. Less lofty here, a basic definition for brain-implanted AI is the direct linking of people's brains to machine intelligence and the bypassing of the normal sensory motor functions of brains and bodies. This advancement is proving incredibly important therapeutically. It could eradicate debilitating neurological conditions and diseases. But my fascination is with implanting the brain with AI for everyday human endeavors, like work, or even human functions, like thinking, creating, remembering, and forgetting, and human sentiments, nostalgia, adoration, jealousy, or grief. I'm fascinated by these things and what the technology will do to them. The tech promises actually to do three things. Decode your thoughts, so interpret thoughts, feelings, and memories. To send direct communication wirelessly to other machines and people through digital telepathy across the cloud. And 3, the big one, to manipulate thoughts through memory editing, limiting memory loss, or enabling significant cognitive enhancement. So whose dream is this, anyway? Elon Musk, to my great surprise Elon Musk discussed brain-implanted AI in a long interview with comedian Joe Rogan last month. It went viral, and the image of multi-billionaire Musk smoking pot on camera was just too much for social media. But he also plugged his plan to merge AI with the human brain. He talked about us having superhuman cognition, and the news he generated had an impact suddenly. He had made brain implants much more mainstream and seemingly viable. In 2016, Elon Musk launched the nonprofit OpenAI for the mission to build safe artificial intelligence to ensure good outcomes for humans. But he also launched the for-profit Neuralink for brain-implanted AI and the uploading and downloading of thoughts to a computer. And this is what he said in an interview. I want to go back. If you have, this is quoting Musk, if you have an ultra-intelligent AI, we would be so far below them in intelligence that we would be like, a pet, like a house cat. And he goes on to suggest an AI layer on the brain that could work symbiotically with you. In a sense, Musk is designing a lifestyle with AI, with us handling our human behaviors, but with AI helping us to keep up. In a sense, he's trying to speak through our own mainstream fears of what could happen. And he uses an ideology of imagined panic to get us there. He promotes the existential risk of AI, humans' inferiority, to sustain the rhetorical and corporate need for brain implants. Neuralink is a way to keep up in the intelligence race constituted by the very data sphere that we have created. And indeed, Musk creates chaos. He polarizes factions for his regulatory breaches on the stock exchange. But we have to keep in mind his engineering innovations are real. His Teslas are on the road, his aerospace flights are in the air, and his chips will be in human brains. The military is also making an implanted memory prosthetic through the NESD program. And I think we can imagine how this kind of technology and all of these actors point to an ethical quagmire, but progress continues. And it isn't new, this technology isn't new. Intel wants brain implants in its customers' heads by 2020. This headline is 9 years old now, but to me it's one of the most provocative quotes of the era. It's a prediction about your digital life, that we will have neural implants. And it fits with the path to convergence laid out in plans for near-term AI, our companion robots, our autonomous cars, or our smart neighborhoods like Quayside. Brain-computer interaction is also a dream about efficiency. We will simply think about needs and wants, and they will be one digital thought away. Yet our dialogue with AI, in this case, will be our inner voice. And who else will be listening to that voice? We host our phones, we host AI on our phones, we wear it on our Apple Watches, but we will ingest it, implant it, and connect it with smart city neighborhoods like Toronto's Quayside, as I said. For me, these technologies have to be understood as personal, part of the self and part of the body when dealing with ethics and privacy. We circulate political news across social media now, but in the future, your political leanings will be conveyed through your physical, cognitive, and emotional reactions. Could we end up creating a technocultural condition of honesty and disclosure with this innovation, or instigate a terrible neuroimplanted capacity for fake news? Or what about when in-body devices are under cyber attack? Are AI brain implants a disruptive dream? Are they a disruptive dream or simply evolution? We enculturate and revitalize embodied technology on a continuum of ideas, of concepts, of values, ethics that lead to adoption, but we have agency to lead it down an appropriate path at this point. We need to design with ethical, human-centric value systems even in the earliest stages of our brains becoming our computers. Thank you.
Do any of you remember that iconic scene in the movie Say Anything, where Lloyd Dobler, played by John Cusack, holds up a boombox in front of Diane Court's bedroom window? Or do you remember when Romeo threw pebbles at Juliet's window to get her attention? Sweet human gestures that make us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Today, we swipe photos of potential partners on our phones and reduce everybody, including ourselves, to 2D superficial images of ourselves. Never before have we had to measure, indicate, or verify our humanity like we do today. Any of us who have ever had to recognize an impossibly wavy set of letters in a tiny box before we can let in to our own inbox to read our own email know what I'm talking about. Of course, now we've graduated from those wavy letters called CAPTCHA to dozens of tiny pictures, and you have to recognize which ones are street signs, so that we can convince a robot that we are, in fact, human. According to research done by psychologist Susan Pinker, the secret to living longer, and I know what you're thinking, it's not heart health, it's not fitness, it's the number of human interactions we have per day and how many deep personal human relationships we have in our lives. In other words, Pinker says social isolation is the big public risk of our time, and technology is aiding that social isolation. By delegating some of the more human tasks in everyday life to technology, we've stripped away the parts that make us human, that make us live longer. Algorithms make all our playlists now, so nobody spends time lovingly mixing tapes for anybody. Lines of code learn all about our behavior to suggest our new favorite TV shows, the places we should go to eat. So we never have to turn to a real person and ask them for a recommendation to that hole-in-the-wall restaurant that doesn't have a Yelp page. And of course, how can we talk about the improper delegation of tasks in technology without talking about fake news and bots all around us? One of the most human things we do is get together with other people and talk about stuff that matters to us. Things like religion and politics. I see some nervous twitches in the audience. Of course we know those are taboo topics, Huda. Stop it. Technology platforms have so drastically polarized our worldviews that we as a collective, we've just given up on authentic conversations. We no longer debate people, not on the internet, not in real life. We all avoid that Republican uncle at Thanksgiving dinner, all the while complaining about him in our safe Twitter bubbles, because technology coddles us. When someone disagrees with us, now, we call them a bot. Or better yet, do you know what the single biggest insult of our time is? Calling someone a Russian bot. Because somehow that is way worse than calling them an average Joe Schmo bot. Back in the day, we used to think someone disagreeing with us was wrong, but at least we acknowledged them as human beings, as people. Now, when someone disagrees with us, our immediate reaction is to strip away their humanity. By hiding behind masks we construct from opinions we borrow from others, and by ignoring the humanity in others, we actually give up some of our own humanity. And there are some industries that are hit harder by the lack of humanity in our technology than others, right? Maybe we'll recover collectively as a human race from the wrath that is Tinder. Maybe we won't, I don't care. But what I do care about is how inhumane tech has negatively impacted bigger industries like the automotive industry. Did you know that it wasn't until 2011, that is, yes, within this decade, that auto manufacturers were mandated by law to crash test their cars with male as well as female dummies? Of course, it wasn't until this year that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia allowed women to drive at all. But really, merely 7 years ago, we were literally making things, technology, that were saving men's lives and killing women. If there was ever a silver lining to Saudi not allowing women to drive, it was this. I can just like picture the crown prince going like, at least I only let them drive when it was safe for them. Or what about industries like healthcare, something that's like near and dear to my heart? Have you ever been in a doctor's office and they've looked at you for like 2 seconds and then like turned away and furiously started typing at their computer? I'll bet that's happened to all of you. That's technology getting in the way of distinctly human interactions. Or I don't know how many of you have read about Serena Williams telling her doctors that she was experiencing a blood clot. She is the single greatest tennis player alive, and they wouldn't believe her. When we discount human interactions, we become worse as a society. Now, despite everything I've said up until now, I'm no Luddite. Quite the opposite, in fact. I would consider myself quite the technophile. Technology has the capacity to make the human race better. The way I see it, we've just swung too far the other way. Do I believe that robots are coming? You bet. They're already here. The mistake we've made is giving them the wrong jobs. By giving the robots all the human jobs, we're making ourselves worst versions of humans. But fear not. There is a way to recover. I say we give robots all the boring jobs. And then let's give living, breathing, beautiful humans all the interesting jobs. The nuanced, wholesome kind of jobs that robots can't do and that enrich our human experience. What if instead of forcing doctors to type into a piece of software from the 90s, the entire time they're seeing a patient, technology could be invisible and in the background and record their interaction in a way that it could be transliterated into a health record later? What if we built a system that could somehow let your healthcare provider know all about your health history before you saw them? I will now let you in on a little secret. A system like that exists today. It is called .health, and I may be a little bit biased, but it's pretty great. And it's a universal health record right on your phone. You can, in fact, download it right now. We're on the App Store. What if we could let algorithms drive our cars so that humans could spend their time with their families? What if we could use technology to augment the jobs we're already doing so without depleting the two things that make us human, our interactions with other humans and the deeply personal relationships we have with them? Well-designed technology is invisible. It gets out of the way of humans. And there are some things that humans are good at, and there are other things that robots are good at, and those are not the same. Teasing those apart and appropriately assigning jobs to humans or to robots, that's the key to a successful, more human, better future. My name is Huda Idrees. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
My name is Khalid Elgazzar. I'm a professor at the University of Ontario, and I have the answer for the question that the president has posted at the beginning, the World Wide Web. So the World Wide Web, or WWW, was invented in 1989. It was originally developed to enable information sharing between scientists around the world. In just a few years, the web has become central to the development of the information age. Billions of people around the world use it as a primary tool to communicate and interact. The number of users grew up from 16 million in 1996 to 4 billion in 2018. 55% of the entire world population using the internet for almost 7 hours a day. In 2010, another wave of disruptive technology was born and called Internet of Things, or in short, IoT. IoT embeds sensors and actuators in physical devices so they can talk to us. So your fridge will talk to your grocery store to replenish items that are running out of stock. Your AC will turn on when you are close to home. The IoT market is set to rise from 157 billion in 2016 to almost 500 billion in 2020. We spend on technology because we love technology. Technology has changed the way we live, the way we carry out our everyday business. Imagine you wake up in the morning. The moment you get off your bed, then the car starts to warm up for you. The coffee maker starts to make your favorite coffee of the day. The school bus sends you a notification, I'm 2 minutes away. Your day schedule starts to pop up in the mirror as you brush your teeth. You have a meeting in 30 minutes. Hurry up, dude. As you walk out of your home, the door locks behind you. The light shut off. The AC turns to a power-saving mode. And then the car starts to, as you walk out, the car starts to unlock and greet you by name, saying, "Hello, Mr. Human." The temperature inside the car is adjusted to your comfort level. You sit in the seat, the car displays a map of the location of your next meeting and say, "Take another route because your normal route will have a 20 minutes delay because it was congested." And it gives you information about the parking spots. "Your meeting room is ready, sir," the phone says. "Jake is on his way. We'll make it on time. Philip will be late 2 minutes. Susan is already there. You will have time to grab a coffee on the way from your favorite shop because lineup is short and service time is 2 minutes." And you whisper to yourself, "Wow, this is impressive. This would not be possible without sharing my data." So with all these excitements, widespread adoption, and the incredible opportunity that technology would enable, also comes a fear. Fear for privacy invasion. Because we are so incredibly obsessed with technology, we tend to share too much in the public domain than we're supposed to. How many times do we look into permissions we allow for applications we download on our phone? Why a QR code application requests access to my contact list? Why an application requires to analyze my email messages on my behalf? Why my smart TV wants to record conversation with my family in our living room? Never talk to your wife again in front of your TV for privacy purposes. We allow utility company to install smart meters to get fine-grained usage of our utility, hoping that we can get better service and save money. But did you know that this information can reveal too much about your daily habits? They can know whether you are at home or not. They can know whether you have a guest last night or not. They can even know how much time you take a shower every day. And most likely you had diarrhea last night because you were flushing the toilet too much. So we have to believe that there is no free service. We always pay the price. Sometimes we know what the price is, and many times we don't. Sometimes we provide consent to collect data on our behalf, and most of the times we don't. Over the past year, we have seen many privacy violations. Companies selling a mailing list, compromising user data, and voluntarily providing access to user profile for target advertisement. So it comes at no surprise when you receive an advertisement relevant to your keyword search last night, or to your most private interest that you never shared with anyone except Google. And most likely it would be relevant to your location. And you ask ourselves, how did they know this? Smart city at the doorsteps. Millions of devices will be deployed around us, and we collect all kinds of information, more than we ever think of. We will soon encounter them. So privacy is a shared responsibility between technology, technologists, and us. Technology should empower people to understand what kind of data they share, with whom they share it, understand what really means to share certain kind of data, and what are the risks if this data is misused. Technologists also have to receive proper training on the ethics of using private data and be considerate when they design systems about people privacy, when they design systems or applications. On the other hand, we people should exercise extreme caution when we share information with others. My mom used to tell me, share your secret with no one if you would like to keep it secret. So I have no Facebook account. I have no Twitter account. and I have no Instagram account, and I have no secret to share with you. So there is too much evil in technology as much as there is good. No one will take care of our privacy if we don't. We people are hungry for technology. We will never stop building technology that offers more convenience and better quality of life. But we have to stop and ask ourselves, are we building a future of technology based on what makes us magnificent human being, or we are building a future of human glory with magnificent technology? We need to focus on what makes us happy and prioritize our attention on development of technology to this direction. So stay safe, stay private.
Hi, I'm Andrea Slane, and I'm a professor in the legal studies program at UOIT. And for my 7 minutes, I want to focus on humanity, technology, and the very human desire for companionship. As humans, of course, we're social animals. We desire human companionship. But modern life, as many a social scientist and even some policymakers acknowledge, has taken a toll on our ability to form and maintain human relationships. This has led to what some have called a crisis of loneliness and social isolation. There's even a newly created ministry, a Minister for Loneliness in the UK since last year. Technology is sometimes implicated in this uptick in the prevalence of loneliness. Despite the many ways that digital communication technologies facilitate human connections, they're also often blamed for reducing the quality of our interactions. Humans, it turns out, are often more interested in appearing connected than actually being present for one another. Which leads me to another way that technology is being imagined to address the human need for companionship, and that is via humanoid robots who promise to provide companionship directly rather than just facilitating human connections. There are many examples of humanoid robots, and by that I mean that they don't have to look like humans, they just have to have some human-like features or behaviors. And these robots serve as companions in ways that model the best of human characteristics. Indeed, we imagine them as often better than a human companion could ever be. They're loyal, intelligent, trustworthy, steadfast, principled, and brave. Oftentimes they're sweet, caring, and cute. It's no wonder that many of us wish these fantasy companions were real and that we could bring them into our homes. The household robot is among these fantasies, a robot who helps us with household chores, runs errands, and tends to our children. While we haven't made much progress on the child tending front, some aspects of these fantasies of robotic household helpers are becoming a reality. While Amazon's voice service Alexa isn't an embodied robot like Rosie from the Jetsons, she is a conversational agent that responds to your voice commands to carry out various helpful tasks around your home. She retrieves and delivers information to you and can engage in basic, companionate, quote-unquote, user-delighting conversation, as Alexa's development team calls it. While the Echo that channels Alexa's voice to your home is essentially an unobtrusive hardware, other developers continue to build on our attraction to a more face-to-face interaction for a social robot who is, as Jibo's marketers promise, not just artificially intelligent, but also authentically charming. Many different models of social robots are hitting the consumer market right now. Most have voice and facial recognition as well as AI capabilities. Some can move around your house. Some can gesture, lead calisthenics, and dance. Many are marketed as useful companions for everyone, but especially for seniors. They tap not only into our own desires for companionship, but also into our anxieties about our failure to provide human companionship to our aging parents. Many robots maybe robots can't tend to our children like Rosie did, but maybe our parents? At the moment, these embodied companion robots are not very sophisticated conversationalists, but I don't doubt that they soon will be. Chatbots like text-based Mitsuko here are becoming increasingly good at conversations. They're empowered by sophisticated AI that can mine the vast digital media database of human conversations for realistic speech patterns and can adapt to the user's conversational needs. It's not a big leap from being a good conversationalist to being a therapeutic tool. And chatbots, and in turn embodied robots capable of more sophisticated chat, are already being marketed with this role in mind too. Which brings me to another basic human characteristic, vulnerability. Vulnerability is not a categorically bad thing. Vulnerability is a central feature of the human condition. We're physically, psychologically, financially, socially, and emotionally vulnerable in myriad ways. This means that it is how we recognize, validate, and protect each other from harm in light of these various pervasive and persistent vulnerabilities that shape the moral, legal, and ethical tasks before us as we face the realization of the fantasy of companion robots. Longing for a companion you can trust makes you vulnerable, in the good ways that can lead to strong bonds and social supports, and in the bad ways that can allow you to be manipulated. I'm not going to go out on a limb if I say that developers love their robots. They share in a dream of bringing useful, affordable, and personable robots to the consumer market. But it's also obvious, to me at least, that they don't yet know how to make money doing so. So they're developing the hardware, they're developing conversational agents, and they're expanding functionalities, and they're commonly opening up their platforms to others to develop applications. This is not in itself a bad thing, not at all, but in leaving it up to a third-party developer downstream to come up with ways to monetize robot companions so as to sustain their ongoing development and encourage more widespread adoption and use, we clearly need to learn from the hard lessons that the social media revolution continues to teach us. We need more effective and meaningful ways to know what happens to the information we share across and now potentially with our devices. We need to know that when we believe that we are speaking in confidence, that our information is truly private and secure, even as it may need to be stored and processed in the cloud somewhere if our robot is going to keep learning. And we need to know that if our robot performs different support functions, both practical household kind of chores and emotional support, that it knows the difference and doesn't use our emotional vulnerability to sell us things or services or get us to vote a certain way. To get there, we need to require that our companion robots be transparent. It needs to be very clear not only what our robots are doing, but who the humans are that are benefiting behind the scenes and how. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Alex Peters. I'm the co-founder and co-CEO of Prodigy Game. And if you haven't heard of Prodigy, we make a math game. Kind of looks like Pokemon. It's used by about 7 million students every single month. And on its surface, it's very, very simple. Kids go in, create their own character, and get in these math battles where they need to answer math questions in order to progress. In our game, unlike a Pokemon game, students are given math questions based on how they are learning. So as they go in and play the game, we get a better understanding of what their previous history is with our product and what we should be asking them next. And on the surface, that looks quite simple, but in our game, we actually get students answering about 130 million math questions per week, and we use all of that information to try to personalize. On screen, you see a question, pretty simple one. I think it's from about grade 2, but it's one of over 1,400 skills within our product. And so we've decomposed the grade 1 through 8 curriculum into 1,400 separate skills, and then we try to figure out on the fly for millions of students what the next question should be. Should it be in the same skill? Should it be slightly easier? Do they have any chance of answering that question? And so The reason that we're trying to do that is we're trying to shape that child's experience. We're trying to make sure that they learn at the fastest rate possible, in the most personalized way, in a way that they're going to stick with the program and continue learning. So a few pieces of information that we're trying to figure out is, what does the child currently know? Based on that information, what do we predict they could learn next? And then third and finally, are they frustrated? Are they engaged? Do we have the ability to push and actually get this child to learn something new? Or do we have to back off the difficulty because they're frustrated, and therefore if we push too hard, they're going to disengage? That first question is relatively easy. The second two are extremely challenging. There are a few enabling technologies that allow us to answer those questions. So what I'm going to walk you through today very, very quickly is big data, sensors, and artificial intelligence. First and foremost, I personally, having kind of listened to some of the other speeches, I'm much more on the technology enthusiast side. It may be my age, it may be naivete, I might not even be saying that word correctly, but in general, it may just be youthful exuberance. But one of the big powers of things like data is the ability to test content. So when I show that question on the previous screen, what I'm showing is actually a split tested version. So that 130 million questions per week, that comes in, and that allows us to create a very similar version of this question, but with slightly different wording, with a slightly different hint, and then objectively test whether or not more students get that question right when that intervention shows up. And that's the primary power of data, is that it allows you to not just rely on domain knowledge or the experience of a group of teachers that has been imperfectly amalgamated, but rather objectively test, refine, and get better for every student on the planet. And so data is the lifeblood of a product like ours. And that actually leads to one of the pieces of technology that I think needs to kind of go away, at least in developed nations, which is textbooks. Textbooks and books in general were an absolutely amazing invention. The printing press brought about an information age that led to all of us having the ability to even have these conversations about the concerns of tech. But in a developed nation like Canada, where we have access to the internet, access to technology, textbooks are an old form of producing content that has no feedback loop. So when a publisher goes and creates content, they have no idea how well it worked. They put it out there, they may get some qualitative feedback from teachers and students, but they definitely do not have an in-depth understanding of, if they put a lesson out there, what percentage of students did it help? Does that change based on their previous interactions with other content? Are there certain types of students that respond more favorably to it? And all of that is just lost along the way. The second piece of technology that I think is going to be massive for us in the future are sensors. Sensors allow us to customize the education experience based on how a child is actually feeling. So for us as humans, if you were trying to teach this child, you would very, very quickly realize they're not paying attention, they're not happy. But if you actually look at what software does, it has no idea. It's just sitting there waiting for some kind of input. And so it's a very different situation in a game like ours. If there's no interaction from the child, it could be because they're staring at the screen and look frustrated, or they could just be talking to their friend. And the actual action you would take in that scenario is very different if you had that information. And so sensors are one of those things that allow us to more effectively emulate what an effective tutor would do. This is myself and my co-founder pitching the world's first emotionally adaptive education game on Dragon's Den back in 2012. I quickly grew a beard after that because I thought it made me look older. That didn't necessarily work, but I'm trying. On that, what we actually proposed was basically a lie detector test. So students would wear a wrist sensor that would allow us to get a rough idea of were they engaged or frustrated. And then the intention was to cater the content based on that information. So if they were engaged, maybe we push a little bit harder. If they're frustrated, maybe we back off the difficulty a little bit. And we're actively shaping the experience like a good human tutor. We ended up having to kind of back away from that. We didn't have, for a lot of reasons, but I do think the technology is progressing to the point where this is possible. More specifically, I believe technology like facial recognition software can be a very powerful window into shaping a child's educational experience. The third and final area I want to talk about is AI, which allows us to develop highly customized experiences for students. Within Prodigy, there are a few key areas where this will likely come to play. For example, I've talked about how we decompose the educational curriculum into 1,400 skills, and those are all connected in a big map that kind of says, if you know how to add 2-digit numbers, you're probably ready for subtraction. But that's an expert system. We used teachers to help put that together, and they come with their own biases, and that hasn't been split tested to see, is that actually true? If you learn how to add 2-digit numbers, how ready on average are you for subtraction? Is there another skill that you should learn in between before you'd be more ready for that particular skill? And so by using big data, that enables you to start customizing and moving beyond expert systems, which were a very early implementation of AI, and into more advanced implementations of it. All right. I do, despite my exuberance, understand that technology does have its downsides. There's been some allusions to some of the problems that people have had with technology. Facebook is a very, very poignant example of not necessarily giving users enough understanding of the data that was being collected, not even necessarily about them, but also their friends when they signed up for apps, and that data then intentionally being misused for very real-world consequences like influencing elections. I do understand that we absolutely need to be very, very careful with this technology. And so I'm not suggesting that this is something that we can just throw technology at and it's going to work. What I am suggesting is that we need to actively work with educators, teachers, parents around the world to make sure that we capture this educational progress in a way that people understand what it is that they're actively consenting to and are okay with whatever trade-off is necessary. In everything that I'm describing, I'm picturing a world where there aren't actually active trade-offs, but you do need to make sure that people understand what it is they're consenting to and then can decide for themselves. The reason that I believe that this is important is that I consider education to be a basic human right, and all three of these technologies have the ability to bring education to more students around the world. And if we can do that, we can allow them to shape their own futures, to plan their own careers and destinies, and as a result, shape a better society for all of us. Thank you.
This is embarrassing. I was going to talk about the Fitbit that I invented for dogs. Is that okay with everybody? My name is Siri, yes, like the iPhone. And yes, like the iPhone, if you tell me anything, I will share that with a bunch of different people afterwards. I'm going to start tonight with something that I started thinking about after talking to some young people in my office that I used to work in, many of whom were dating exclusively through apps like Tinder that have been mentioned a couple times tonight. These thoughts were inspired initially by one young guy I knew, smart, funny, interesting, ambitious, who told me about a text he'd received from a girl he'd been seeing for about 6 months, saying that they needed to talk. He knew what that meant, as we all do, that they were going to break up, that it was time, and he started to dial her number. And then he thought, you know what, I'm going to see if I can play this out. And so he texted her back. And they broke up entirely by text. No face-to-face contact, no talking, never seen again. And when we talked about it afterwards, he admitted to being, propelled partially by laziness, by a developing aversion to conflict, to a discomfort for tension, and to the fact that there really wasn't anything there to begin with. And partly just because he could, because the option was available to him. And then he asked me about the olden days and seemed genuinely amazed and intrigued that people of my advanced years had ever managed to find and connect with romantic partners without this technology, without swiping or the benefits of algorithm-propelled curation. And he couldn't imagine how it was done, and it sounded pretty terrible to him. So, how to meet people. In grade 9 French class, he was sitting behind me. He made up some excuse to ask me something, and I turned around and saw it in his face. I remember the girl sitting next to him giggled and quickly looked away. In a new job out of university, hired to run a literary magazine, the publisher had hired someone else and arranged for us to meet in a College Street coffee shop. I walked in and thought, oh my God. And hours later, we were still walking around the city. In a meeting at work, a frustrating conversation with people, many people who lacked vision or creativity. And suddenly I realized that one of the voices was speaking of possibility, of answers, of opportunities to be seized. And I recognized something in the voice before I even looked up. In grade 10, on the phone for hours, conversations that seem silly now but mind-blowing at the time. No trading of anecdotes or opinions or what we're watching on Netflix. Just question after question, and the same clumsy dreams in response, the same naive fears. And I still remember exactly where I was sitting in my bedroom when I had that conversation. Shopping together for a Christmas present for my mom in my 20s, he said something that caught me off guard and made me laugh so hard that all I could think was, I'm gonna be with this guy for a really long time. Hours and hours straight, everything and anything, poetry and delight, and frustrations and ambitions. Silence only to think about what had been said and the improbability and luck of having had the chance to hear it. Over drinks, often it was over drinks. For the first time, anyways, always in the same room as one another. This used to be an obvious thing. Once in university while tree planting, pulled slightly out of the shadows of a tree while we kiss, not so anyone can see or for a picture, but simply so we're fully in the moonlight. On a small plane flying across northern Ontario in my 20s, the turbulence is terrible, and I'm a person who firmly believes that a plane crash is how I'm going to die. At a brief stopover, the pilot sits with me and talks about sailing, that planes are like boats on the sea riding the waves. And I realize that if there's a possibility I'm gonna grow old and die with the person I love, then chances are it's gonna be a bumpy ride. But that doesn't automatically mean you're gonna crash. So hold on to the armrests and try to enjoy the ride. In high school, I was outside his house in the middle of the night, crying, Sinead O'Connor's last day of our acquaintance playing from the car I stole from my parents' garage. Once in a bar, him not taking it well, trying to talk me out of it, explaining that it's simply because I'm young and haven't yet learned how to settle. It really did. Dragged out for hours until the candle on our table finally burned itself out, and I leave. On the porch, quietly, leaves falling from the trees, drawn out, painful, really wallowing in it, painful, and really rolling around in it. Relapses and recurrences until they're fewer and further between, until they're cast into a part of yourself that is simply memory, and you let the rest fade away. Over and over again like that. That's how you do it. Dating apps, as a few of us have mentioned, are kind of just a low-stakes example of the intersection between technology and humanity. They weren't introduced to do harm. Quite the opposite. They're designed to forge human connections. And they're doing so, sometimes more than once in a single night. But to me, they demonstrate the need to think about those connections and the types of moments it is that we seek. The moments that define us as human, both individually and collectively, that make us who we are. What are those moments, and how do we enable them through technology, and how do we protect them for the sake of humanity? Technology, as we've heard tonight, is advancing rapidly and introducing new tools, new ones that I'm scared of now, like brain implants. And they present many opportunities and breakthroughs, but also the potential of many new threats to our well-being, to our society, to our security, and to our sense of selves. But I would argue that the discourse around technology is framed incorrectly, as it's put forward in terms of a battle we must fight. There are those who will argue we need to fight against these threats, against the potential dangers of unchecked technology, and there are fierce generals in this fight who point out the advancing enemies on our shores, the casualties who have already been lost, and who understand from history and insight and common sense and experience, and sometimes from their own complicit involvement, where these evolutions can lead and the dangers that they can hold. But fighting against something requires troops. It requires those who will follow you into battle and who believe they are not being conscripted into a losing war. And so I would argue that this conversation about technology and humanity should not be framed in terms of what we're fighting against, but what we're fighting for. As technology continues to advance, we must fight for the moments that make us human. We have to fight for the magic of critical thought, for the thrill of real human connection, for the nuance of language properly used, for the benefits of community lived out in the open, for the principles of public service, of civility, of compassion, of straight-up passion. We must fight for the painful moments too, and recognize that there's something to be gained from them, and something that's lost when they're scrubbed away by convenience and efficiency. What do we lose when we can no longer experience inconvenience, awkwardness, solitude, pain, loss, when we no longer actually get lost? We must fight for an unsanitized experience of humanity, remember it, seek it out, even if we do it with our phones in our hands. We must frame our conversations about humanity and technology against a goal, not a threat, against the experiences we want, not processes we're introducing. We just need to remind ourselves what we're fighting for. And that doesn't mean talking against technology, but in defense of humanity. I run a space for scale-ups called OneEleven, and I will tell you that no one in there is creating a company or a piece of technology with the goal of making things worse. No one's doing that. When you talk to people about what they're working towards, they will always talk in human terms, that they are trying to free up time, to create opportunity, empowerment, to make things easier, to help people learn, so that other priorities can emerge, so that people can truly apply their expertise. They are trying to solve problems to create the moments that we all seek. And so if those are the goals, then those are also the metrics against which we must measure success. If we are trying to create time, we must seize on that time. If we are trying to enable expertise, we should listen to those experts. If we are trying to create opportunities, we must make sure they materialize for many and not just for a few. Technology is a tool, it is not a crutch. It should empower, it should not erode. And so we must remain focused on the humanity and ask ourselves constantly, is this what we were working for? Are these impacts acceptable, and can they be mitigated? Are we doing something simply because we can do it, because the opportunity is there, because we can, or are we doing it because we should? In many ways, the choices we face today are no different than the ones in the past when other industrial revolutions have occurred. There's always been innovations, and there's always been costs. But perhaps today we can push ourselves to get to solutions faster. We can anticipate the costs, and we can make some upfront investments. No one here is arguing that cars shouldn't have been invented. There were accidents, as was referenced, right from the beginning. But we probably could have thought about seatbelts and sobriety a little earlier. We must task ourselves as creators and also as consumers to constantly measure the benefit of what is gained through technology while fighting to ensure that nothing important or essential is simultaneously lost. We must ground ourselves in the human experiences that we seek. It's not that we must find love with a phone or without one. It's not that we must reject technology or choose to work without it. It's not that we shouldn't communicate through Twitter or Facebook. We should just remember that the people on there exist in real life too. When it comes to finding love, I've done it in my life without a phone, without an app, and I know the moments that define me and how I've chosen to live. And there are those today, I'm sure, who are using Tinder and finding those moments as well. Those moments of eyes meeting, those flashes of familiarity, talking until the candles burn out. And I think they're finding pain too. They're definitely finding awkwardness, that I know. And I hope they're experiencing those moments too, at least for a minute. I hope they're taking a moment to really live them, to feel them, to wallow around, to take the time to call instead of text, to look each other in the eyes, to steal one last kiss in the moonlight, and maybe be alone for a minute, or two, or three, and asking themselves who they are and what they want before they raise their hand for the next swipe. So.
Thank you, Siri. I could not help but think about before 1989, in the 70s, when I was growing up and a boy wanted to phone me, my dad answered. And he had to get through my dad, and then when I got on the phone, my mom picked up the line downstairs. Like, you tell people, kids today, then they look at you in horror. Like, what are you talking about? Thank you to our speakers, to Hamoon, Ekhtiari, Isabel Pedersen, Huda Idrees, Khalid, Elgazzar, Andrea Slane, Alex Peters, and Siri Agrell. Thank you. Thank you to the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, Dr. Stephen Murphy, Noreen Taylor, Peter Stowett, and the whole team for making tonight possible, and to Dialogue and Scotiabank for your additional support tonight. Now, I have a couple of things that I need to tell the audience, but I'm going to set the speakers and Dr. Murphy free, so they can join you at the reception afterwards, and that they get out there first, because I know you're going to want to talk to them. So as they're going, yay. Thank you, guys. As I mentioned, this is our 97th Walrus Talks event, which means there are now over 650 7-minute Walrus Talkers on our YouTube channel called Walrus Television. You can go to the walrus.ca, or much more convenient, you can subscribe at the walrus.ca, you can donate at the walrus.ca, but you can also do it at our table right out there this evening, which is more convenient for you. Tina is there, happy to help you, and just for you tonight, a full year's subscription to the Walrus is just $25, and that is a lot of fact-based journalism. And the very best part is, every dollar you donate tonight to the Walrus Foundation will be matched dollar for dollar by two of our generous and optimistic supporters called Gretchen and Donald Ross. So you can double your donation tonight. While you're at our table, you can sign up for the newsletter to make sure that you don't miss any Walrus Talks. We're back in Toronto twice more this fall. The Walrus Talks Disruption, November 6th, and the Walrus Talks The Future of the Arts on November 27th. There are two more tables out there at the reception tonight. One is our friends at Adventure Canada. If you fill out a ballot, you have a chance to win a $28,000 trip circumnavigating Newfoundland. So be sure to visit Adventure Canada. And also, you'll have a chance to meet some of the brilliant students currently attending University of Ontario Institute of Technology as they demonstrate their skills in critical thinking that they are learning at this innovative institution. They have their own table out there as well. You can meet the Walrus team. My board chair, Helen Burston, is here. Helen Burston is here. A number of yes. You can meet our founding donors, the Chalker Foundation. There's Jim O'Reilly. Put up your hand, Jim. Other Walrus board members, Education Review Committee members, National Advisory Committee members, Walrus staff. There's some. There's Jessica Johnson, our editor. There's lots of Walrus staff around. They have on name tags. Please meet them all. There will be, at the reception, there is food, there is drink. If you are there, there will be very good conversation. Remember one thing. You are actually the Walrus. Good night. Merci. Megwich. Safe home.